Saturday mornings used to mean something else. I couldn't tell you when that changed, when the sound of coffee brewing became less about comfort and more about duty. The kitchen counter was cluttered with plates from the night before, and I was already on my second load of laundry before anyone else even stirred. I moved like clockwork, wiping down counters, emptying the dishwasher, folding towels just the way my wife liked them. Meanwhile, laughter trickled down from upstairs, the kids arguing over cartoons, my wife talking loudly on the phone, probably with one of her friends. It was a scene I'd seen 100 times, me in motion, them at rest. What used to feel like care started feeling like obligation. I wasn't angry, not yet, just tired, numb in a way that didn't hurt anymore because it was too familiar. I was wiping down the glass on the patio door when I heard her voice, closer than usual. She was pacing around the living room with her phone on speaker. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but then she laughed, loud, almost theatrical. "He's basically my maid. I swear he's more useful with a mop than in bed." There was a pause, followed by the cackling of voices on the other end. "At least you trained him well," someone added. They all laughed again. I stood there still holding the spray bottle, my other hand tightening around the rag like it could absorb what I'd just heard. She didn't know I was behind the door, just around the corner. I didn't walk in, didn't say a word, just turned away. Walked into the garage and sat down on the cold cement floor like my knees had given out. My mouth went dry, not from shock. I'd been losing pieces of myself for years, but because hearing it said out loud changed everything. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Her brother, Eric, strolled in like he owned the place. No knock, just swagger and a six-pack. I was setting the table for lunch, something simple. Grilled cheese for the kids, tomato soup on the stove. "Hey, Maid man," he shouted, grinning. "You missed a spot." I glanced over. He pointed at a smudge on the tile with a crooked smile like it was the joke of the day. "At least she doesn't pay you," he chuckled. "If I were you, I'd demand a raise." They both laughed. My wife didn't defend me. She didn't even flinch, just sipped her wine like I was invisible. I forced a smile. My hands didn't stop moving, buttering the bread, flipping sandwiches. But inside, something cracked. It wasn't just the insult. It was the realization that they believed it, that maybe they'd always believed it. I wasn't a partner. I was help. Background noise. A convenience. How the hell did I end up here? I used to run strategy for a top-tier consulting firm. 6 figures, benefits, recognition. I gave it up 5 years ago. Not because I had to, but because she asked. She had just launched her startup, and the hours were brutal. "We're a team," she said. "You hold us down now, I'll lift you up when it's your turn." My turn never came. Every time I brought it up, about going back, about starting something of my own, it was always the same. Let's wait until things settle. They never did. There was a project I once dreamed about, building a logistics platform that could have gone global. I turned it down. For the kids, I told myself. For the family. For her. That night, after Eric left and the kids were asleep, I sat quietly on the couch, watching her laugh at something dumb on TV. She leaned over, whispered something to herself, and chuckled. She never looked at me. I studied her. Every flicker of her smile, the way her eyes crinkled. It hit me. I'd seen that look before. Not at me, but at the kids, at Eric, at her friends. Never at me. Not in years. Was this what I'd become? Just the maid? I used to think being silent kept the peace. But peace isn't silence. Peace is being seen. I stood up slowly, walked to the office down the hall. It still smelled like cedar and old ambition. I sat at the desk, opened my laptop, and scrolled through my inbox. There it was, an email thread from 3 years ago. A CEO I'd met at a conference. He'd loved my ideas. Said, "When you're ready to make moves, call me." I hovered over the keyboard, typed 3 words. Still interested? Stared at it, thought about erasing it. Instead, I hit send. The smell of grilled ribs and baked beans hit me before we even reached the back gate. Celine had on her favorite sundress, the one that always seemed a little too perfect for family barbecues. I carried the casserole dish, homemade, warm, still in the foil. She brought a plastic container of cookies from a fancy grocery store, ribboned and labeled like it came from a boutique bakery. Guess which one got praised when we stepped through the screen door? Her mom clapped her hands. "Oh, Celine, these cookies look so professional." No one asked what I brought. I slid it onto the table beside the paper plates and turned to grab more folding chairs from the garage. By the time I returned, everyone had a drink in hand, laughing, the music low and familiar. I ended up manning the grill, not because anyone asked, but because no one else offered. Kids ran around, dripping popsicle juice, dropping chips into the grass. I picked them up, handed out napkins, refilled lemonade. Celine flitted from conversation to conversation like she was hosting a gala. Not once did she glance my way, but I felt them, glances, smirks, the kind of laughter that isn't loud, just consistent, measured, targeted. After handing a plate to her uncle, I turned to find her cousin Damien leaning on the fence beside me, beer in hand. He gave me that lopsided grin you give someone right before saying something disrespectful. "So Celine says you volunteered to be the house husband. You love cleaning, right?" He chuckled, sipping. I blinked at him. "She said what?" He shrugged. "I mean, that's what she told us. That you're all about the domestic life. Some dudes are like that, I guess." I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, something like that." He moved on, still laughing to himself. I stood there, spatula in hand, watching fat sizzle and pop on the grill. That wasn't what I agreed to. I never volunteered to be someone's maid. I gave up a career to back her, to build something together. She used to call it a partnership. Now it was a punchline. Had she been telling this story for years, turning sacrifice into servitude? Was it easier for her to say I wanted this rather than admit she stopped seeing me as her equal? I didn't have time to dwell. From the porch, her brother yelled out, "Yo, Mr. Clean! Bathroom's out of towels again!" Laughter erupted. I froze. "Mr. Clean," he repeated, snorting. "At least he's good with bleach and secrets, right?" Even my son laughed. He didn't look away when our eyes met. No shame, just amusement. That cut deeper than anything else. I handed the tongs to Celine's dad and walked inside. My hands shook as I grabbed the towels from the linen closet. Each step back to the porch felt heavier than the last. I wasn't just the joke of the in-laws. My own kid joined in. Back home that night, after everyone was asleep, I found Celine in the kitchen pouring herself a glass of wine. "Did you tell them I volunteered for this?" I asked. She didn't flinch, just shrugged. "You did, didn't you? You said you wanted to help. I just told them the truth." "There's a difference," I said calmly, "between helping and being made a joke." She waved her hand. "They're just teasing. Don't be so sensitive." I didn't respond. Just walked to the garage, closed the door behind me. My thinking space used to be alive with blueprints and sketches back when I had plans. Now it smelled like dust and forgotten ambition. But the silence helped. I sat down at the old bench, flipping open my laptop. Still worked. The screen lit up with folders I hadn't touched in years. Business plans, product prototypes, investor contacts. Then I saw it. Logan Whitmore. CEO of a logistics firm that once called my pitch years ahead of its time. He told me, "If you ever want to pitch again, come find me." My finger hovered over the mouse. I opened a new draft. "Mr. Whitmore, I believe we have unfinished business." But before hitting send, I glanced up. There, hanging above the workbench, a mirror streaked with grime and age. My reflection stared back, tired, but awake. I whispered to it, "I may have been their maid, but I won't be their punchline." Monday mornings had always been mine. While Celine rushed off to her job in her tailored blazer and heels, I'd walk to the local coffee shop a few blocks from home. It gave me space, quiet, familiar faces, and a corner table by the window. I'd bring my sketch pad, my laptop, and start poking at the skeleton of the prototype again. Just a few lines of code or a rough design, nothing perfect, but it kept my mind sharp. That morning, the barista Jenna smiled when she saw me. "Hey, Blaze, your usual?" "Yep, and a blueberry scone if it's fresh." She nodded. "Hey, I think I saw your wife last week at Harper's across the street. She's there a lot with coworkers." I raised an eyebrow. "Harper's?" "Yeah, she's kind of the star over there, right? Big table, lots of laughs." I nodded, unsure how to feel. I didn't ask further. While waiting, I opened my laptop. Just as I was booting it up, a man seated nearby leaned over slightly. "Sorry to eavesdrop," he said. Did you say your wife's name is Celine? Yeah, I said cautiously. He chuckled. I know her from Harper's. Works at Montgomery Tech, right? She's the one always cracking jokes about her husband being the maid. Says you're practically part of the cleaning crew. I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. I just looked back at my screen, heart thudding like a war drum while my fingers stayed perfectly still. He smiled politely, then went back to his coffee. Inside, something buckled. Not loud, not sudden. Just a fold in the foundation. Driving back home, the whole ride was silent. No radio, no thoughts, just that one sentence repeating, the maid. I didn't ask Celine about it. Not yet. I needed more than a reaction. I needed to see it clearly. In the quiet of my home office, I sat and wrote out every moment I'd let pass. The dinner parties where she'd cut me off mid-sentence. The way she'd wrinkle her nose at my shirts before we left for gatherings. The time she joked in front of friends about my lack of ambition, then told me afterward I was too sensitive. She didn't love me, not the way a wife should. She used me as a prop, a reliable background character in her success story. My mother once told me, some women love who you were, others love what you can do for them. Celine loved convenience. I stared at my prototype, a clunky bit of hardware half built on the desk. The code was scattered, buggy, but it was mine. It still remembered who I was, even if she didn't. That night, we ate dinner in silence. Our son had already left for a friend's house. Celine swirled wine in her glass and asked, "You good?" I looked at her calmly. "I heard what you say about me at lunch." She blinked, just for a moment, then laughed a little too loud. "Oh, come on, you know I'm joking." "To strangers?" I asked. She set her glass down. "Blaze, it's harmless. Everyone jokes." "Don't be so sensitive." "I'd rather be alone than disrespected," I said quietly. She stared, then stood and walked out, muttering something under her breath I didn't catch. I stayed seated, not angry, just hollow. Later that night, I was digging through an old desk drawer, looking for a USB drive, and found a photo that had slipped behind the back panel. It was us, years ago. She was holding a poster board with the words, "Her startup, our future," scrawled across it in marker. I'd helped her prep for that pitch night, stayed up proofreading, fixing her slides, believing in her dream. Now, I wasn't even in the credits. I stared at that picture, not with nostalgia, with clarity. I built her throne, but she crowned herself queen and told the world I was the butler. I placed the photo face down on the desk. The next morning, an email blinked into my inbox. Logan Whitmore's assistant. "Mr. Whitmore is available Friday at 2 p.m. for a 10-minute call. Please confirm." I didn't hesitate. Opened a new document. Titled it, "Revenge Through Legacy." The house had gone quiet, but not peacefully. Celine and I moved around each other like strangers renting the same space. No fights, no apologies. Just silence that pressed down heavier than any argument ever could. She acted like nothing happened, like the last conversation didn't matter, like the word "maid" never left her lips, like my dignity wasn't on the line. She was watching me, I could tell. Not openly, but in that way people do when they're waiting for you to do what you've always done. Fold, forget, forgive. But I didn't fold, not this time. She went to work. I stayed home, working deeper into the nights. The prototype was no longer a distraction. It was a destination. I finished the first viable version 3 nights in. Called it Verity. Not for her, for me. Verity. Truth that doesn't ask permission to exist. On Wednesday afternoon, Celine popped her head into my workspace, makeup half done. "You're coming to the gala tonight, right?" she asked, like we were fine. "What gala?" "The one downtown. I'm giving a speech. You know this." "No, I didn't." She rolled her eyes. "Whatever. Just be ready by 6. We need to show face." I showed up. In a suit that hadn't left the dry cleaner's bag in months. Drove myself, parked 2 blocks away. She met me at the venue like I was her +1, not her husband, not the man who used to stay up rehearsing her speeches with her until midnight. The ballroom glowed with designer dresses and rented smiles. Houston's elite packed the place, tech leaders, nonprofit execs, old money trying to feel young again. Celine walked the floor like she belonged. Handshakes, kisses on cheeks, loud laughs that didn't reach her eyes. I stayed by the bar, one glass of scotch, neat, nothing more. When she took the stage, the room quieted. She spoke about innovation, resilience, the power of community. And I couldn't help but think, she used to mean every word. Now they were just lines she memorized. After her speech, a man staggered toward me, mid-40s, loose tie, expensive watch. "You're Celine's husband, right?" he asked too loudly. I nodded once. He smirked. "Man, she really trained you well. Always said you were the quiet, dependable type, kind of like a house cat, tidy, loyal, low maintenance." He laughed at his own joke. I didn't. Celine caught my eye across the room. She smiled like everything was fine, but everything was not fine. Later, in the hallway by the coat room, I found her alone, touching up her lipstick. "That guy," I said. "He said you trained me well. You laughed." She glanced at her reflection. He was drunk. "That was your moment to show I mattered. You failed." She turned, annoyed. "Are you serious right now? You're going to ruin my night over a comment?" "No," I said. "I'm going to end this quiet phase right now." She blinked. Something in my voice must have changed. "The next time you make me invisible, I will disappear. And you won't like where I go." She crossed her arms. "You're bluffing." "No, I'm done bluffing. I've got something in the works. You think I'm just playing with wires in the garage? Try me." She scoffed but didn't have a comeback. That was new. I left first and got in my car, sat still in the lot for 5 minutes, breathing, thinking. When I got home, I didn't change out of my suit. Instead, I walked into the guest room we barely used and opened the top drawer of the old dresser. Found a voicemail on a dusty, forgotten burner phone, one I hadn't charged in years. My grandmother had left it, on a birthday Celine forgot. Her voice came through soft but steady. "You are not invisible, my boy. You just shine too quiet for noisy people to notice, but they'll see one day." I sat on the edge of the bed, and I smiled. 2 days later, I got the call. Logan Whitmore's assistant. "Mr. Whitmore would like to meet with you and his board next week. It's private. We've fast-tracked your file. Can you make it?" "Yes," I said, without even blinking. Verity was ready. The days after that gala were heavy. Celine didn't say a word. She gave me the space of silence, a Cold War unclaimed, and I felt it everywhere, in the kitchen, by the couch, in the shadows of her eyes. I threw myself into Verity, working past midnight. The prototype advanced, lines of code aligning, hardware humming alive under my hands. It felt like reclamation. In that silence, I understood how neglect wounds more than anger. That night, she came downstairs while I was packing components into a briefcase. "If you plan on making a scene, don't," she said, low and quiet. She didn't ask why I was in that room. She didn't ask what I was building. I paused. "What do you mean?" She lifted her chin. "Don't embarrass me. People respect me now." Respect me. Her tone left no room for the US I thought we were. It was always about her. I closed the case gently. "So it's not about us," I replied. "It's about how you look in the room." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be dramatic." I held her gaze, steady. "I'm not begging for your pride. I'm claiming my dignity." She turned away, walked off without another word. Something inside me dimmed, an echo of old wounds. I felt quiet, detached. The ring lay heavy on my finger. I slipped it off, placing it in the drawer next to a worn photo album. No fanfare, no drama, just methodical distance. I didn't stop loving her, but I stopped believing she'd ever love me back. The next morning, I packed my laptop, project boards, cables, and headed downtown. I rented a conference room in a co-working space. Whiteboards, glass walls, my own ground. I loaded the slides for Verity, clean architecture, market analysis, business plan tight. I called an old colleague to cross-check numbers. He still had faith. Together, we sharpened the deck. By lunchtime, it felt ready, lean, unapologetic. In the cafe downstairs, an older couple sat side by side. The husband adjusted a presentation on his tablet. The wife sipped her tea, smiling when he passed her a chart. They weren't polished execs in a gala. They were partners, team. He teased her when she squinted. She nudged him back, a light back and forth. She said, You're the brain. I just make sure he eats." The husband laughed. I watched them, not envious, just a kind of longing, a memory. We used to be like that. Before names were removed, before jokes replaced respect. I caught my reflection in the cafe window. Clean lines, a silhouette of power, no longer invisible, not yet whole, but rising. That night, I returned home under quiet streets. Celine's car was gone, lights in the house off. I left a note on the fridge. "I won't embarrass you. I'll simply outgrow you." I walked to the garage and grabbed the portfolio bag, Verity slides, contracts, investor letters. I set the alarm early. Tomorrow is the presentation. Morning light slipped through dusty windows as I pushed open the garage door. The workshop smelled like solder and stale coffee. I stood there for a moment, letting my eyes adjust. The workbench was still crowded with wires, circuit boards, and Verity's shell sitting half disassembled. I rubbed my thumb against the Qiao pin clipped to the mirror frame, the same piece I'd kept hidden. It sat there like a reminder. I had roots. I rehearsed the line in my head. "I'm not asking permission anymore." It tasted like steel in my throat. I opened the pitch deck I'd labored over for weeks. The contract draft shone back at me, signatures and red lines dancing in memory. Today would determine whether that work remained invisible or not. A ping broke the silence at exactly 10:03 a.m. I winced. It was from my phone. The subject line read only 5 p.m., Seattle. My heart sank. I opened it. No attachments, no fanfare. Just 6 cool words. "I saw your deck. Let's talk." That was it. An invitation. My name called out of darkness. My chest felt tight. Accepting meant stepping out of shadows. It meant exposure. But I couldn't pretend silence was safe anymore. I stared at that email too long, wrestled between fear and resolve. And then I typed one word. Yes. The hours that followed were a montage in my mind. I flipped through old emails I'd sent her before she altered logos. I saw my own markups on contract drafts she'd stolen credit for. Board meeting notes I wrote, she rewrote. Investor calls I led, she presented. I felt cold certainty. She'd built her empire on my foundation, and now she'd have to defend it. Late afternoon, in the lobby of a sleek Seattle office building, I caught sight of Celine. She looked composed, flawless, in a tailored coat. I walked toward her. She turned. For a moment, vulnerability flickered, shock, worry, defense. I said, "We need clarity before tonight." She said nothing. I continued, "You've had 10 years to decide whether you see me. Tonight, everyone will." She stared at me, her mask cracking. Then she turned away, lips pressed thin. She left without a sound, but I knew she knew I was no longer the silent husband she could dismiss. Back in my makeshift studio, I flipped on lights, lined up the slides, and rehearsed transitions. I anticipated her PR spin, programmed in a slide revealing email chains and version histories. I practiced pacing, steady, calm, not desperate. I closed my eyes and listened to a voice note from my son. "Dad, I'll be proud tonight." That sharpened something inside me. This wasn't just for me anymore. At 5 p.m., I stepped into the glass-walled lobby. The elevator doors slid open. I straightened my jacket and caught my reflection. The Qiao pin glinted on my lapel. I walked forward. No hesitation. No doubt. Tonight, I wouldn't fade into the footnotes. I would take the stage. The ballroom glowed with crystal chandeliers and soft ambient light. I slipped in at the back, unnoticed by most. The murmur of conversations and clinking glasses floated around me. I caught glimpses of familiar faces. Investors, donors, tech press, clustered in sleek dresses and suits. I nodded to Logan Whitmore across the room. Dorian hovered nearby, masks and flattery intermingling. Celine entered, walking a few steps ahead, arms raised, applause greeting her like royalty. The program booklet lay open on my table, presented by Celine Marrow. My name was nowhere to be found. When the spotlight hit the stage, she stood before the crowd and spoke confidently. "Tonight's contract, the 10 deal you see on screen, is the result of my vision, leadership, and endurance." Behind her, slides flashed, timelines, logos, projections, everything hers. No hints of collaboration, no acknowledgments of my contributions. The audience clapped. Some turned to me in surprise. Dorian shifted uncomfortably. Logan's jaw clenched. My heart didn't race. My face stayed neutral. But inside, a hum built, electric and lethal. Then something unexpected happened. The screen flickered. A staffer rushed to Celine, whispering. The gallery dimmed. And suddenly the conference slides swallowed themselves, replaced by a video I had recorded. A confession. My voice came through calm and firm. I built every brick of this contract. She erased me. The ballroom gasped. The projection reverted, my name now front and center in red text. Logos, numbers, board minutes, emails, all documents I had stored now revealed in plain sight. Celine froze. Her composure cracked. She looked pale, exposed. The room changed. The hum of applause turned into a low buzz. Whitmore rose, stepping forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice steady, "I'd like to hear the real mind behind this achievement." Security escorted Celine off stage. She glared at me, unable to speak. I stepped forward. I opened my presentation, every slide, every email, every version draft laid bare. I didn't shout. I spoke quietly, clearly. I didn't come to compete. I came to reveal. I outlined the years of unseen work, erased credit, and silent labor. I didn't blame. I simply showed the truth. The audience listened. Some nodded. Others looked down. Silence carried weight heavier than any argument. I paused. The hush stretched. Then Celine reappeared from backstage holding a crisp white envelope. She approached Whitmore, handing it to him. "This is a revised contract signed by me," she announced, voice strong. A gasp rippled across the crowd. Logan stared at the envelope, stunned. I took a breath. Betrayal had spoken and the stage trembled. The room held its breath. After the video confession broke the silence, I stepped forward. Cameras pivoted. Guests leaned in. Whitmore nodded, commanding attention. "Let's hear from the person who earned this," he said. The hush was absolute, thick, heavy. Then applause trickled in, swelling as faces shifted. Celine was led away, pale, a murmur trailing behind her. I stood in the spotlight, seeing them finally see me. Whitmore motioned to a screen behind him. Legal documents appeared. Contract drafts, board meeting minutes, version histories, email threads. Every alteration bore my hand. Every signature she claimed had earlier versions with mine intact. Dorian's voice cut through the tension. "All prepared by Mr. Mercer." Gasps echoed. A few people stepped back, some clasped hands over mouths. Celine's phone buzzed incessantly. She froze, lips parted, eyes wide. Then Whitmore's voice filled the hall. "This $10 deal was negotiated solely by Blaze Mercer." The words rang out. Cameras zoomed in. I saw disbelief, shock, pride, all in the same frame. Tears welled, but not for sadness, for vindication. The audience stood. Applause thundered. Strangers turned into supporters. Investors approached me with nods. I stayed calm, strong, present. Celine re-entered the stage, trembling, trying to reclaim command. My voice cut through. "I built every brick. You cannot revoke that." She quivered, tried to reply. I nodded and let space speak louder than accusation. Whitmore stepped forward, offering me full control of the project. Applause flooded. Celine's silhouette slipped away. Bitterness lingered in her eyes, but defeat was hers. Later, I returned home under quiet Seattle lights. The house was still. I paused at the mirror and clipped the Quiao pin back to my lapel. It felt like reclaiming a lost identity. I texted my son. "It's done." Then I sat on the porch. I watched the skyline, towering, steady, alive. Time passed. Months rolled on. I ran the company with integrity. Celine's facade crumbled behind headlines and whispers. I hired people I'd once quietly supported. I built on principles I believed in. I never asked her forgiveness, but I offered peace, my own closure. I was once their maid. Now I am the story they cannot erase.